What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video, I'm going to be once again showcasing my Great League Rayquaza because it was just made a lot more accessible to everyone with the recent Ascending Ozone research. So in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what you need to get this Pokemon, and then showcase what it can do in the Open Great League alongside the rest of the Weather Trio with Shadow Kyogre and Shadow Groudon. Now I did actually do a live stream with this exact team just a couple of days ago. Don't worry, these aren't repeat battles, and in that stream, I also explained how to obtain this Pokemon for the Great League, but most of you don't watch the streams, so I'll be reiterating it here. Okay, so first of all, this is going to be one of my longest ever intros explaining exactly how to get this Pokemon, as well as talking about a few other things. So if you really only care about the battles, feel free to skip ahead. There will be chapters, so you'll easily be able to navigate. Also, I am still ill, so apologies if my voice doesn't sound so great. It might take me quite a few tries to actually just get through the entire intro here. But anyways, the Rayquaza that you will get from research is caught at level 15. But as you'll have noticed when you caught it, that is still way too big to fit into the Great League. In order for it to go below 1500 CP, you need to trade for it for the IVs to have a chance of going low enough. However, you can't just trade it with anyone because at best friendship, the trade will still be too high. Unfortunately, for the best odds, you'll have to trade it with a good friend, which is the friendship level after just one interaction. You can't trade with a completely new friend because you're not able to do special trades until you reach good friends, so you will have to interact at least once first. Now, even with good friends, the odds still aren't in your favor, as I believe you only have around a 7% chance that your Rayquaza will go below 1500 CP. Someone can fact check me if I'm wrong. I was just going off what the chat was saying the other day in my live stream, but at that level of friendship, each special trade will cost you around 20k Stardust, so it can get expensive very quickly if you don't get lucky. For me, I think it took just over 20 trades to finally get one, which is over 400,000 Stardust. Now, for me, a few years ago, the actual hardest part of obtaining this Pokemon was trying to organize trades because I was pretty much already best friends with everyone in-game within my local community, and if that's the case for you, this is probably also going to be quite difficult. But what I would recommend is asking on various local Discord servers, and also just asking at in-person events like Raid Days, GoFest, etc., where there's likely going to be a lot more people playing than usual, and potentially more people that you don't often interact with. Now, after hearing all of that, you're probably wondering, is this Pokemon really worth all of that effort? It's probably rubbish anyways, and yeah, that's kind of true, but at the end of the day, it's about what it's worth to you. If you enjoy running rarer Pokemon or glass cannons, this is going to be worth a lot more than someone who's only really playing in the Go Battle League to run the absolute top meta and climb elo as efficiently as possible. In these battles, you'll see the absolute best of it, fully soloing full teams, but also where it falls massively short in a lot of battles too. But to be fair, to pilot a team like this, you're going to need to be on top of your game, and that's where today's video sponsor, G Fuel, comes in. G Fuel is an energy drink aimed specifically towards gamers and is designed to help improve your energy levels, focus, endurance, and reaction time, which will all help to improve your overall performance when battling in the Go Battle League. Right now, there's a buy one get one free sale, so whether you're a regular G Fuel enjoyer looking to stock up, or if you're looking to try it for the very first time, there's never been a better time to do so. Also, unfortunately, whilst my code won't stack with the buy one get one free sale, by using my code, you are still supporting me as a creator, and I will receive a percentage through commissions, so make sure you use the code Callum at the checkout. Okay, now final thing before we get into the question of the day. I know I've been rambling for absolutely ages, but I did warn you to skip ahead, so if you're still watching right now, I really do appreciate it. Anyways, I just released a new track which you can hear in the background of this video. If you want to hear the full track, you can of course check it out on my channel, and I've actually got a full music playlist with other tracks that I produced myself. Let me know if you think this should be my new background music for my videos going forward, or if you prefer the old one. Anyways, with that being said, let's finally get into the question of the day. What's the most effort you've ever put into obtaining a completely mediocre or even borderline rubbish Pokemon for the Go Battle League? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so after recording the intro, unfortunately, basically every time I try and go like high energy with the commentary, I'm gonna start a coughing fit. So there's gonna be like some of the craziest battles you've ever seen with like the least energetic commentary you're also ever gonna get on my channel, which is a bit funny, but either way, we go for Ancient Power here. Ancient Power gets the boost and it gets the full farm down. They're gonna come in with a Miltank, and you know what? We're boosted. Let's just full send. Dragon Ascent gets the one shot there, and now they come in with a Gastrodon. Honestly, this game feels like it's already over. Once again, I'm just full sending. The opponent calls the bait, or they realize it's already game over, and Rayquaza just fully swept an entire, well, actually just fully soloed an entire team. So GG's to opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see a shiny Shadow Dragonair in the lead. Here, if the opponent goes straight for a wrap, I can actually win CMP. I go for Ancient Power once again because I do expect to grab a shield there. The opponent goes for wrap, debuffing my defense, but I'm happy to no shield. And now we do have a decision. Now, honestly, Groudon, whilst yes, Mud Shots are going to hit for neutral damage, Kyogre probably does more damage with the waterfalls, and they have to full send another wrap, which means I should be able to shield once and then fully farm down. Now, they're going to come in with a Lantern, which of course is not ideal for Kyogre, completely walls the energy, and of course has super effective sparks, but also kind of core breaks the backline because Groudon is not going to appreciate the surf. Now here we do bait with a Fire Punch, and what that's going to allow me to do is just barely reach a Precipice Blades on the CMP tie, and of course this is an extremely hard hitting move. It gets the KO, but we're not done yet because I need to swap out. I'm able to perfectly catch a surf onto Kyogre. The opponent does go for an undercharge, which is quite a smart play. However, Origin Pulse, huge damage, that is resisted damage up against a Lantern, and now because of that damage I don't need to hit any bubbles here as Precipice Blades gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there. Into the next battle, we are going to see a Clodsire in the lead. Now, I've got two better answers because I can hit for super effective. So, I say swap into my Shadow Kyogre, which, by the way, unless you do come up against another Water-type Pokemon, is actually a fairly safe swap in this meta, which is kind of crazy to say, because you do have just like insane shield pressure. You're pretty much guaranteed to grab at least a shield advantage, or potentially even both shields from your opponent. However, what this does do is set up a monstrous farm down for the Medicham, which is likely going to have access to Ice Punch, which means they're going to grab both of my shields instantly back from my Rayquaza. So I am going to look to double shield here, and then at this point, I am going to look to overfarm. I'm going to throw an Ancient Power here. Ends up being a CMP tie, which is fine. Ancient Power is resisted damage, but it will get the knockout. Now, unfortunately, their final Pokemon is an Azumarill, a Pokemon that actually just beats the entire team, and that is a bit of a struggle for this team. However, if the opponent doesn't throw straight away, if they predict a catch attempt, then that's game over for the Azumarill, because Dragon Ascent gets the KO. I'm now going to swap out straight away into my Shadow Groudon, and unfortunately for me, you're going to see Earthquake does not get the KO there, but it does not allow me to reach a Precipice Blades either, which means we settle for the Fire Punch, which is non-stab. It doesn't do much damage. It allows the opponent to come out close to a charge we've loaded. Sludge Bomb takes out Rayquaza, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Talonflame in the lead. So, of course, great lead matchup for Rayquaza. The opponent going to be safe swapping into Licky. And I come in with the Groudon because, first of all, it has the worst matchup up against the Talonflame, but also because I do resist the rollout damage, it's not that bad of a matchup here. Now, Precipice Blades is going to grab a shield back from the opponent. The opponent did full send the Shadow Ball the first time around, so I'm going to shield once again, and the opponent is going to do the exact same thing. Now they've grabbed all shields here, it is maybe possible that the opponent won't shield the next charge move here, but nope, they do end up double shielding. Either way, even if I bait it, I only reach another Fire Punch anyways, so Shadow Ball gets the KO there. But we're still in an okay position because we didn't necessarily need switch advantage there, as of course, they've got a Talonflame. Both Kyogre and Rayquaza are very strong into Talonflame. Dragon Ascent... Excuse me there, Dragon Ascent gets the KO. They come back in with the Talonflame, but we've got Ancient Power. Ancient Power, double super effective, gets the KO, and we get another attack boost. And that is huge for me because now Dragon Ascent, neutral damage, but it doesn't matter. It gets the clean KO up against that Ferrothorn, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Blastoise in the lead now. Bit of an awkward matchup here just because rollouts are super effective, but of course, if they go straight for Hydro Cannon, I'm happy to no shield here because it is resisted damage. Now, resisted damage onto Rayquaza doesn't look very resisted, but we do hang on, we can survive, we can fire off the Dragon Ascent, and now I'm going to swap into my Shadow Kyogre. Now, the opponent has farmed up to a potential Skull Bash. I'm going to shield, and they do full send, which would have probably just taken us out there. Now, unfortunately, because they boosted their defense, I don't know if Avalanche KOs, and unfortunately, it narrowly misses out there, which is really not ideal, but I can live the Hydro Cannon, not very comfortably, but I live it nonetheless, and the opponent swaps out into their second Pokemon, which is a Como-O. So we grab the final shield there. I'm now going to come in with my Shadow Groudon, and of course, I'm going to have to shield anything here. The opponent goes for the upper hand. Upper hand is not going to drop my defense, which is quite nice for me. And here, I can outpace them to the Precipice Blades. Precipice Blades easily gets the KO there, but their final Pokemon is going to be a regular Talonflame, and unfortunately, even though they swap out, they try to make the catch there. I swap into Rayquaza. I'm basically just trying to deal as much damage with that Dragon Tail as possible, because Precipice Blades does huge damage, but it's not quite enough. That is resisted damage, by the way, but it doesn't KO. Fly takes out the Groudon, and unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. We can see Rayquaza into Shadow Giratina. So unfortunately, up against basically any other Dragon Pokemon with a Dragon type fast move, Rayquaza will be losing in the one shield scenario if the opponent just shields once and then fully farms me down. Now, in certain matchups, it's probably better to swap out there, but actually, we don't give up that much farm into the Giratina, and now we're going to see a Gourgeist coming in as they shield up a Fire Punch, and they will look to overfarm. Now, honestly, I'm not really sure what to do here. I am going to no-shield as they fire off the Seed Bomb. I realize that my Kyogre can at least resist the Incinerate damage, and potentially it could be a double Incinerate team, which is a team that I personally really love using myself. Now, anyways, we are going to throw an Avalanche here just before they reach the next Seed Bomb. They've got a lot of energy on the Giratina, but they actually come in with a second Incinerate user. It's going to be Salazzle. However, I recognize the play. The play on the opponent's end is to try and snipe with the Giratina. We read them like a book. We go for Avalanche. Avalanche gets the KO there, wasting all of their energy. Waterfall farms down Salazzle, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle, going to see Umbreon in the lead. So, this is going to be a matchup where I'm going to look to throw as late as possible because I don't want to debuff myself. However, the opponent, very smart, they're going to farm up to 100 energy, and they end up forcing the CMP tie anyways, which means I've debuffed myself. I have to tank the charge move here. They go for Dark Pulse, but Rayquaza barely hanging on, which means we're actually going to win the zero shield scenario here as the opponent lets Umbreon go down. Now, they come in with a Shadow Talonflame. That's fine for Kyogre, but what is not fine is the fact that they've got a Azumarill. Now, Kyogre could have access to Thunder. We're going to go for the Origin Pulse. It connects, so if the opponent did not, well, obviously they weren't expecting a Thunder, but if we were running it there, honestly, this would be game over for the opponent. However, unfortunately, we're not running it, so I'm going to bank the energy, swap into my Shadow Groudon. However, I don't know if that's the best play, because now Play Rough does decent damage. It puts me into farm down range, but the opponent doesn't commit to a farm down. Instead, firing off the Flame Charge, we come in with Kyogre, we get the Waterfall farm down, we've got a lot of energy, but I don't know if I can reach 3 moves, so instead, I'm committing to the fast move farm down. The opponent actually would have got the farm down themselves, whereas because they throw the charge move, we end up simultaneous KOing there, and it ends up being a tie. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Jellicent in the lead. So, this is going to be where we want to see it for this team because Rayquaza does have some neutral damage. And here, we might as well just full send the Dragon Ascent. Dragon Ascent going to be no shielded by the opponent. That is huge for me because now I can just shield once and then fully Dragon Tail farm them down. They do full send a Shadow Ball there, but it doesn't really matter. They're now going to come in with a Melmetal, however. And unfortunately, Melmetal super spammy to the double Iron Bash. So, I don't throw on perfect timing, but I am able to grab a shield back from the opponent with a Dragon Ascent. Now, I'm going to shield as they full send the Dynamic Punch, but I believe they did overfarm by a single Thunder Shock, so I've got to be taking that into account for the end game, because, of course, now I've got all shields down. So the opponent is going to come in with Sableye, use their shield there. They then look to overfarm massively, and they go for Drain Punch, which doesn't get the KO, which actually gives them even more energy. Now, Groudon can tank a foul play here. It's not going to be very comfortable, but I don't really want to swap out, try to make a catch, and actually just end up giving them even more farm. So instead, we can go for the Fire Punch. We throw straight away. Of course, Melmetal never going to be able to farm me down here. So the opponent, well, I tried to make the catch there. The opponent, very disciplined, reading me like a book there. Able to hold onto the energy, farm up to back-to-back double Iron Bashes, which means, unfortunately, Groudon just one away from the charge move. Of course, if we stayed in there, if we predicted that the opponent would try to overfarm, we probably win that game there with a Fire Punch, but GG's, very well played by the opponent. Into the next battle, we're going to see Empoleon in the lead. Not the best matchup for me. We swap out into Kyogre, which also only has resisted moves to throw. However, these waterfalls are going to start to add up over time. Now, the opponent comes in with a Wigglytuff, which honestly, great that my Rayquaza is avoiding it. However, the opponent's gonna no-shield an Avalanche. That is a crazy call on their end. It forces me to throw again. Excuse me there, because they do just barely hang on. Their final Pokemon going to be a Shadow Quagsire. And at this point, this could be a Stone Edge. They have no reason to bait here because they're in such a great position, so they do full send. But honestly, I still have a potential win condition here. We're going to go for the Ancient Power. Ancient Power going to be shielded by the opponent. They will reach a Drill Peck, but that's not going to get the knockout. So Drill Peck doesn't KO. We can now go for a Dragon Ascent, and Dragon Ascent, even though it's resisted, it threatens the final shield from the opponent. Now, I believe they are one over from the Hydro Cannon, so we're going to swap out, catch the charge move onto my Shadow Kyogre. Hydro Cannon gets the knockout. They swap back into Quagsire. They are 3 away, but Groudon able to outpace just barely. Precipice Blades gets the KO. They come back in with the Empoleon, and we're able to reach a Fire Punch on CMP, winning CMP with Groudon, and Fire Punch will get the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we're going to see Rayquaza into Zweilous. So, of course, once again, another Dragon-type Pokemon in the lead. That Rayquaza will just be losing in the one-shield scenario, so there's no point shielding here because Body Slam is not going to get the knockout. I can now just full send a Dragon Ascent. Dragon Ascent going to be shielded. After debuffing myself there, I wasn't entirely sure if I would live the Dragon Breath damage and reach, well, at least land another Dragon Tail there. So I thought I might as well just swap out into my Shadow Groudon. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I've quite put them into Fire Punch range, which means I have to full send a Precipice Blade, which probably is a little bit of a misplay on my end, but it looks like the opponent ends up lagging by a single turn, which means Precipice Blades is reached on the CMP tie. That is absolutely massive for me, so I guess that makes up for it, because now we can grab the final shield, come in with the Shadow Kyogre, and of course, I'm going to shield anything. I know this is just a Body Slam. I'm then going to look to try and swap out and catch a charge move, but the opponent makes my life a lot easier as they come in with a Shadow Typhlosion. Now, we could go for Origin Pulse, but even a resisted Avalanche easily gets the KO there. We can go for one more Waterfall, fire off the second Avalanche on CMP, taking out the Licky Licky, and I'm able to take that game. So, heading into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Hypno in the lead. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into Dunsparce, and because they are one turn behind, this means I can actually stay in with Rayquaza, full send the Dragon Ascent, and then look to swap out into my Shadow Groudon. Now, I could have maybe thrown one more Dragon Tail, look to catch a resisted Rock Slide onto my Groudon, but either way, I probably was going to end up shielding here. So, we're just going to shield the next move as they fire off the Drill Run. I'm now going to look to overfarm as much as possible here. Of course, this season, it is 3 to reach the third Drill Run as well, which means I do have to throw on good timing. Now, they're going to come in with the Hypno. Unfortunately, I barely missed out on the Precipice Blades, which, of course, all shields are now down. That would have done insane damage, whereas Fire Punch, honestly, doesn't really put me into the best position. Now, I'm calling that this is just going to be a Thunder Punch, so I'm going to no-shield this, but they're actually on Legacy Psyshock. Fair play to the opponent, because I love Psyshock on Shadow Hypno. I have one on my 100% IV Ultra League Shadow Hypno, but either way, we're going to go for a full Waterfall Farm Down. They're going to come in with a Primeape, and unfortunately, I'm forced to throw one away from back-to-back charge moves, but remember, Dunsparce did leave with a charge move loaded. I don't think Avalanche quite gets the KO from that range anyways. Draw Run easily takes out Kyogre, however, and unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Tinkaton in the lead. Of course, worst thing that Rayquaza could see. So we swap out into Shadow Kyogre. And at the very least, I will grab a shield advantage here, as they just have to respect the damage from an Avalanche. Now, they go straight for a Swift, which is fine with me. Apologies that my voice now probably sounds awful to listen to, but I'm sure the battles are at least going to make up for that. I'm going to come back in with Rayquaza. I'm going to no-shield. A Swift doesn't really put me into farm down range just yet, so not really at risk of being sniped there with the Tinkaton. I go for Dragon Ascent, but they actually end up shielding there. Now, I'm quite surprised by that play, but I guess maybe they're just reading that they already know that I've got a Groudon in the back. Either way, I'm going to look to overfarm. I didn't want to throw a Fire Punch on CMP, just in case they tried to swap out and catch the charge move there. I did want to throw slightly earlier, but that does mean we barely miss out on the Precipice Blades before they get to the move on the Tinkaton. Now, unfortunately, they're going to have Mandibuzz in the back. Groudon can't really do anything here. Of course, we do have Fire Punch. It's neutral damage, but even 3 Fire Punches will not KO, which means we can swap out, we can make a catch if we want to, but it's not going to help me win this game. And so, unfortunately, at this point, I'm just going to save them some time, I'm going to concede the match, but GG's to that opponent there. Sometimes you do just run into teams where like there's just nothing you can do, even if you play perfectly. But into the next battle, once again, we're going to see another dragon type in the lead, where we can live the 35 energy charge move, and then full send the dragon ascent. This time I do stay in, as I am just barely able to hang on and land one more dragon tail. That puts them into a slightly more comfortable waterfall farm down range, and again, this is just going to be another Aqua Tail, so I'm going to no-shield this. Aqua Tail is resisted damage. They then swap out into Empoleon. Now, this seems like a strange play to swap out and look to catch a charge move, but that's not my intentions. Instead, I'm banking the Avalanche for later, then coming in with the Groudon, happy to double shield here, because now I can outpace them to back-to-back Fire Punches, and with the Mudshot damage, Fire Punch eventually is going to get the knockout. So the opponent is going to no-shield, Fire Punch gets the KO. We've also put the Dragonair into Fire Punch range, even though it is resisted and non-stab. And their final Pokemon going to be, and it's... Oh, excuse me there, I'm very close to coughing, but there's going to be an Astonish Dunsparce, which is crazy to see, but we're able to connect with the Precipice Blades. Waterfall puts them into range, where a single Mud Shot gets the farm down. We actually take the damage from their fast move, which shouldn't be possible, as of course we have a 2-turn fast move versus their 3-turn fast move, but either way, we barely hang on, and we still end up taking that game. So, GG's to our trainer into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Annihilate in the lead. They're on counter, which is actually better for me because it is resisted damage there. Then I'm going to swap out into a Corviknight. And so I'm going to swap out, look to go for a Mudshot there on the swap there, which means we can now outpace them just barely to a Fire Punch. Now, Fire Punch is going to be no-shield. It's actually a CMP tie, so that works out perfectly for me, as the next Air Cutter will get the KO. I'm going to come back in with the Rayquaza, but I quickly realized that I'm at 100 energy, so I can't overfarm. However, we go for the undercharge, and that's the perfect undercharge, which gives me one extra Dragon Tail, whilst I'm taking very little damage from those sand attacks. And their final Pokemon, going to be a Quagsire. They no-shield the Dragon Ascent, which means we can swap out into Kyogre. The opponent going to bank the energy, but honestly, I feel like they should have just grabbed my final shield there, because now they come back in with the Annihilate. Avalanche grabs the final shield, and all I need to do is not shield here. We save our shield for the Rayquaza up against the Quagsire. They don't reach another charge move. Dragon Tail goes through, which means I can safely shield even if they had back-to-back charge moves. Dragon Tail will KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Charger Bug in the lead. So, this is not the worst matchup for me, but also not the best either. So, we're just going to stay in initially. If they do want to throw straight away, that's going to give me a full Dragon Tail in for free. But even with that extra fast move, they're still going to outpace me to back-to-back charge moves. So, we go for Ancient Power, we grab the shield, we then swap into our Shadow Groudon, where of course, Discharge is double resisted. They're going to come in with an Empoleon, that's fine with me. I'm going to look to throw a Fire Punch on CMP here. They might actually end up shielding anyways, and the opponent is going to shield. However, I'm going to shield as well because they're going to outpace either of my Pokemon in the backline to the next charge move, and we've only got resisted damage, so I might as well stay in. Fire Punch still also not quite going to get the knockout, but it does put them into farm down range. Now, we've got to decide, do we want to come in with the Kyogre? Yes, we do. We want to get ahead on energy. They're going to come in with a Fearow, so we swap into Rayquaza, and we go for the CMP tie stack swap. We undercharge, but it still gets the KO. No, that is so bad for me because I was hoping to put them into like one waterfall farm down range. I needed Kyogre with the energy advantage to take out the Charger Bug, but the opponent then gets the perfect farm down themselves, come out with a Discharge, which takes out my Kyogre, and unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Como-O in the lead. So here, I do expect to grab a shield advantage. So I am going to go for an Ancient Power here, just in case the opponent didn't throw straight away. I don't want to debuff myself, but we do grab that shield advantage. So at this point, I'm happy to let the move go through. Upper Hand still gets the KO despite being resisted, but now we can come in with our Shadow Groudon. Now, I'm going to look to shield once here. I'm hoping that by the time I do throw a Fire Punch, it will be enough damage to get the knockout. But if not, we do already have back-to-back moves. So Fire Punch does get the KO there. Then I'm going to come in with a Seismitoad. I'm going to look to go straight for Precipice Blades here. No messing around. The opponent calls the bait. It gets the KO. And they've got Magcargo in the back. That is an absolutely dominant matchup for my Shadow Kyogre. We just shield once as the opponent fires off the Rock Tomb. Waterfall, debuff, it doesn't matter. We get the farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle, and we are going to see Rayquaza into Jirachi. Now, not the best matchup for me. Honestly, I'm quite surprised that I am staying in here because Kyogre is going to have a neutral matchup, also resisting Doom Desire, so potentially we do have the opportunity to catch a charge move. However, we do stay in, and we're just double Dragon Ascenting here. Even if they no-shield this, and it's resisted damage, it honestly puts them into farm down range, so they do end up double shielding. We're now going to come in with the Shadow Groudon. We can shield once here as the opponent is going to fire off another Doom Desire, and now the opponent is going to eventually swap out, but they swap. They're probably looking to catch a Fire Punch, but they swap into Carbink, so we overfarm. We farm to 100 energy. Precipice Blades gets the KO. They come back in with Jirachi, and I'm going to look to throw on CMP. Fire Punch will get the knockout here. What is that final Pokemon? It's going to be a Trevenant, and here, I think this is a mistake. I stay in, I throw the Fire Punch, but instead, what I should be doing is swapping into Kyogre, because now we don't apply enough fast move pressure. The opponent goes for Seed Bomb, which doesn't KO there, but it does allow him to Shadow Claw farm me down, and unfortunately I lose that game. Whereas instead, if I swapped out into Kyogre straight away, we deal enough damage with those waterfalls. We also force them to throw pretty much straight away, and Groudon still reaches a Fire Punch anyways. But anyways, into the next battle, Dragon Ascent, gonna be no shielded there. They then come in with Altaria, which honestly not ideal for my backline, especially with all shields still in play, because Kyogre, we've got Avalanche, but they're just gonna shield this, and potentially even double shield and commit to a very aggressive Dragon Breath farm down. So, Avalanche, number 2, gonna be double shielded, and honestly, this puts me in a horrible position. Groudon just has no chance of taking out the Altaria just yet, but with these Dragon Tails, honestly, we've done decent damage here with the Rayquaza. I think with one more Dragon Tail, we put them into range where we can Fire Punch them down, so we're gonna come in with that Groudon. I'm gonna look to overfarm, I'm gonna throw just as late as possible here. Does this KO? Fire Punch does get the knockout, and their final Pokemon is Clodsire. That's going to be game over as we reach a Precipice Blades. This is super effective. Clodsire, super bulky, but it gets the one shot, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.